Well, hello and welcome to the Healthy, Wealthy, Wise show. I'm your host, Corey Sievers, and congratulations for being here. On this particular show, we're going to be delving into the topic of Alzheimer's disease. And Alzheimer's disease is one of the world's leading killers now. And we're going to look at the good news that there is around Alzheimer's disease. And so right now, at time of recording, it's World Alzheimer's Day, and so that's why we thought that it was important to share with our community members just some insights on this important topic. And in Wealthy and Wise, we'll be talking about how to grow rich while you sleep in all areas of life. So this is a real, and we'll be talking about the conscious mind and the subconscious mind. So this is a real brain day today here on World Alzheimer's Day. So congratulations for being here. If you're new to what we do here in the Savvy team, we're all about helping you reach a higher level of health and lifestyle, and certainly that's what we aim to do here on the Healthy, Wealthy, Wise show. So congratulations for being here. Look, this is such an important topic, so please share this amongst your communities. You know, there's actually good news about the area of Alzheimer's disease and cognitive decline. And we're on a mission, really, a save your brain mission here in the Savvy team, to educate people about what can be done to recognize the early warning signs and to do something about it before it's too late. Prevention is always better than intervention, and that's what we're really aiming to do here in this show, to educate you about these sorts of things, and here in on this particular session about Alzheimer's disease. So again, welcome to the session. Especially if you're new here to the show, let us know if you are brand new to the show. Give us a wave if you're joining live, by the way, so that I can see that you are here. Maybe type new if you're brand new to the show. And of course, say hi if you are rejoining us. Look, here in the Savvy team, we're all about, as I said, connecting you with sort of information that can help you to enjoy improved health and lifestyle. And we have a whole range of wellness action plans to help you to tackle some of the complaints that you may be experiencing. That being said, we're not about treating any particular issue. We're about correcting the underlying things going on in the body so that your body naturally reaches that high level of health and lifestyle. So, in essence, we're here to inspire you, to motivate, and to guide you to achieve your health and lifestyle goals. So, sometimes when we think about this aspect of diseases such as Alzheimer's disease, it can be very, there can be a lot of fear and stuff around that. And we don't want that to be there for you. There's a lot that can be done, but much of it is preventative strategies, as you'll learn as we go through this particular session. So please do pay it forward. We love the concept that little Trevor McKinney in Pay It Forward said. He said, he drew up on a whiteboard, on a blackboard there. He said, if I just helped 3 people with a needed favor and they paid that forward and then everybody kept doing the same, he said we could change the world. Now, this was a movie, and it was a fictitious movie and a social sciences experiment that he came up with. But, the movie depicts that a movement began. And, he said, if I could help 3 people with a needed favor and they just paid it forward, we could change the world. Well, folks, there are people needing favors in the area of cognitive decline and wellness enhancement. We just ask you to pay it forward. Let's really make a difference out there in the world of reducing fear and putting more understanding around cognitive decline. Certainly, that's the focus of World Alzheimer's Day, and many of the organizations focus on they focus on what we believe is the wrong end of the stick. They focus on fighting against Alzheimer's disease rather than looking to what we can do to optimize our brain so that we prevent and maybe even reverse cognitive decline. What I do acknowledge that a lot of these organizations do brilliantly is support the carers. So when we're dealing with Alzheimer's disease, it is a massive burden on the community, as you will learn. And not just from those who are suffering, but also from those who have to actually often exit their job, retire early, take time off work to care for loved ones that are struggling with Alzheimer's and dementia. So I do acknowledge what these organizations are doing. I just think that what they're doing is the wrong end of the stick sometimes, because they're focusing on finding one solution. And what you'll learn, you'll be better educated than many of these organizations by the end of this session, because of the fact that I'm going to expose you to some of the underlying factors that research has uncovered, so that you'll be better armed than most of these organizations out there by the end of this session. Bold claim maybe, but I'm a passionate researcher in the area of, health and lifestyle improvement. My own grandmother certainly died from dementia. I don't recall whether it was classified as Alzheimer's, and you'll learn that they're slightly different. Alzheimer's disease accounts for about 60 to 70% of those classified with dementia. So cognitive decline, however we look at it, it is now one of the leading causes of death. And we'll delve into how on earth can it actually cause death. I thought it just affected memory. Indeed, the brain is implicated in everything that goes on in their body. And so while many people who do die from Alzheimer's disease die from sort of complications, ultimately it's because the brain controls everything. So let's, please join us on the mission that we're sort of calling the Save Your Brain movement. Look, it's important that you realize here, as I'm getting away, as I mentioned, I'm a passionate researcher. I am a non-medical researcher. I am not a doctor, and I think that actually affords a lot of benefit. When we're looking at this particular information, there are many doctors who, because of what they learned in medical school, that there's nothing that can be done for cognitive decline, they just can't see the evidence that is being presented. And in fact, some of the things that I've heard just recently is that even many physicians that have been struggling with the beginning stages of dementia themselves could not believe themselves, even with their own desire to make the changes, could not believe that it was possible. And yet when they finally broke through, they did see improvement, and massive improvement at that. So please understand that this information reflects my personal research and experiences of my stories or anyone sharing in the comments, and should not be seen as medical advice. The information is general in nature, and so all individual health concerns have not been taken into account. So comments and experiences should not be interpreted as therapeutic claims or any form of medical advice. If you have any question as to the appropriateness of the information with regards to your own health, discuss this with your healthcare provider. That being said, we encourage you to take self-responsibility for your own well-being and learn more on this topic and complementary medicine in general. Now, the reason that's so important is because, as I said, much of the information that I'm going to be sharing with you is your doctor may not have even looked at. And so, one person, in fact, when they did talk to their doctor about it and gave them books to read, their doctor said to them, "No doctor has time to read." And that's part of the problem. Doctors are very busy. They have very short consultations. Our system's built that way. And so there's no way that you can tackle some of these underlying factors that we'll discuss in a short appointment. Okay, so it's naive for you as a member of the public to think that your doctor can educate you on everything that can be done in just one simple appointment. So that's why we encourage you to take self-responsibility and learn what you can do to control all of the underlying factors that can lead to disease. And that actually then ends up taking the burden off our healthcare system. And certainly in the area of cognitive decline, the healthcare system is basically, many experts believe that it is bankrupt, especially when we look at the prevalence of this disease and Alzheimer's in particular. So look, if you want to improve something about your health and wellness, then we can guide you there. But before we jump on into the really delving into the whole concept of Alzheimer's disease and the prevalence and some specifics there. In the Healthy Wealthy Wise show, we like to bring in some other things. We have our quick tip section, which I'm about to give you right now, and our fun facts section. And so in the quick tips, we decided here on World Alzheimer's Day that we should put a bit of a focus onto the brain. And so this quick tip is all about how to give yourself a brainwash, okay? And this is a brainwash in the right sort of way. Not one of those bad brainwashes, but a good brainwash, we could say. We all need a bit of a brainwash. So here when we're looking at this, the quick tip is, here's the quick tip. Avoid eating 3 hours before bed and practice stretching your overnight fast to beyond 12 hours. That's the quick tip. You might freak out at that. Exactly. So what we need to do is one of the issues that you'll discover as we go through is that we need to be in control of our blood sugar and our ability to optimize and to utilize fat for fuel. And much of the research into Alzheimer's is showing that the more you can be in what they call a ketotic state, more of ketosis and away from glucose metabolism, the better your brain functions, and the more you can actually prevent cognitive decline. Interesting stuff. We're in a sugar-rich world nowadays, and our diet is very carbohydrate-rich. But what happens is there is a system in the body called the glymphatic system. And that's really what helps to wash your brain out at nighttime as you sleep. And if you eat coming up to the hours before bed, in essence, your brain can't do the proper washing up there. And the more that you can stretch out your overnight fast, so we all fast overnight, even if you go to bed at midnight and wake up at 7 o'clock in the morning, you've had a 7-hour fast. Well, research shows that you activate autophagy, the body's self-cleaning and rejuvenation systems, once you go past 12 hours. And so can you start to stretch out your overnight fast? So if you just can't get by without breakfast in the morning, let's say at 7 o'clock, how can you make sure that you stop all eating at 7 to make sure you've got at least a 12-hour fast and definitely at least 3 hours before bed? Then you'll activate your you'll help your glymphatic system to clean up your brain, and you'll also activate the self-cleaning mechanisms in your body known as autophagy. So let me just explain some of this for you, give you a little bit more information about that, because while you rest at night, your brain is in essence busy sweeping and mopping the floors and getting rid of the cobwebs and everything. And if all of your energy is directed to the digestive system to absorb and digest and all that sort of thing, then your brain sort of suffers. Digestion is a very intensive process, and the blood flow goes to digestion. So in essence, when you eat late into the night, you may have heard about that'll put on weight and all this sort of thing. Well, it's also stealing from your brain. So look, if you think I've never heard of this, or even, you don't know anyone who's heard of this, well, it's only in 2012 that researchers identified the glymphatic system. And this is really, because they found that the actual cerebrospinal fluid in the brain is what is responsible for draining the toxins from the brain, much like the lymphatic system is for the rest of our body. The brain doesn't have a lymphatic system. It has the cerebrospinal fluid, and they sort of called this the glymphatic system. So how do you optimize it as well? Well, certainly avoiding eating too late into the night and getting those 12 hours of fasting overnight. But the Eat Savvy philosophy, the whole way of eating in our program, will optimize your glymphatic system. It will optimize autophagy, all of our wellness philosophies of decreasing toxin exposure, increase in nutrition, optimizing the body's systems such as the detox pathways, the microbiome, the mitochondria, all of these centers, these systems of the body that will also emphasize and support your glymphatic system. Also in 2013, researchers found that that intermittent fasting certainly activated autophagy and had a flow-on effect to the lymphatic system. So again, if you've been involved in any of our classes, our fat loss maximizer toolbox and all these sorts of things around weight management, that we endorse the principles of fasting and for self-cleaning as well as weight management. So, there's some tips there. Learn to fast, skip snacks, and avoid eating late into the night. And you're going to activate autophagy, rejuvenate your body, and activate your lymphatic system to give yourself a brainwash. Sounds like a plan. So there's some tips for giving yourself a brainwash. Let's jump on into some fun facts about the brain. Now, I have 12 amazing facts about your brain that might blow your mind, we could say. So let's jump on into to this particular segment of the show. And again, if you've just joined us for the Healthy, Wealthy, Wise show here, we're about to talk about the end of Alzheimer's. It's World Alzheimer's Day today as we are recording. And of course, if you're catching the replay or if you're catching the podcast version, then that's why we chose to talk about this particular topic, that at the time of recording it is World Alzheimer's Day. And the brain is a pretty astonishing part of the body. You probably don't pay enough attention to your brain. It is it takes up a fraction of the space in your body. It's only just less than a couple of kilos, and the average person doesn't know much about their noggin. So here's some interesting facts. The brain itself can't feel pain, and you might go, "You don't know my headaches. I can feel pain." Well, in actual fact, the receptors, there's no actual pain receptors in the brain, but on all the tissues and of course the muscles and everything surrounding it, that's where the pain receptors are located. So that's where you actually feel the pain. Number 2, your brain is very greedy. It's a greedy child. Your brain accounts for about 3% of your body weight, but it receives about 30% of the blood pumping into your pumped by your heart, so pumping around 30%. And that shows about how much attention and support that your brain should be getting. It's an important organ of the body. So number 3 is adult brains still make new neurons. While most of your neurons have been with you since birth, age does take a toll, the brain can still build. And this is known as neurogenesis. Here's the problem. Most people today are not feeding their brain with enough of the right nutrients to support neurogenesis. And that's what we'll learn as we delve into the end of Alzheimer's. So, again, we talk in the Savvy team about positive and negative bio-influences, okay? And we do a bio-influence report, hair analysis. And so, if you have too much of the negative bio-influences and not enough of the positives, then, that's the problem. We don't see neurogenesis. We see cognitive decline. If you can tip the balance, then you're actually going to be able to tip the balance more into alignment with supporting your long-term brain health. And a lot of research into neuroscience and neuroplasticity has shown that we really have a lot of control over what goes on in the brain and what we can do for our brain. Number 4, exercise is just as good for your brain as it is for your body. And this is partially because of the stimulation that comes with exercise, partially because of the cardiovascular pumping action of the blood around the body. Part of we did research many years ago when we were working with vibration technology. We were some of the early users of vibration technology here in Australia, importing expensive equipment in the early 90s from Germany, and so you see vibro plates everywhere now. But we did articles there on move the leg muscles and feed the brain, because the research was showing that without the real pumping action of the way we do exercise and everything, we really can't get all of the nutrients up to the brain as much as we can. So sedentary people don't feed their brain as well. So Do the legwork, feed the brain. Exercise is very, very powerful. Plus, exercise has a positive effect by activating BDNF, brain-derived neurotrophic factor, and this is, this again helps helps to, simplifying things, helps with improving the brain and the neurons and neurogenesis and all of these sorts of things. So really, in essence, exercise is sort of like miracle grow, a fertilizer for the brain. In fact, that's what BDNF is. It's a fertilizer for the brain. So anything that we can do to stimulate BDNF, and some of the things are fasting, exercise. There are certain extracts. One of the reasons I take a particular product that helps with fat mobilization is also it contains coffee fruit extract, which is shown to improve BDNF as well. There's lots of different herbs that can improve BDNF. This is the brain-derived neurotrophic factor. So it supports the brain. Miracle grow for the brain, really. So anyway, number 5 is brain scans light up when a person is in love. That's right. And so they've been able to see that different parts of the brain light up when a person is loved. So often we think that's just simply an emotion and there's no reality to it, but scientists can see that certain segments of the brain actually function for that particular emotion or feeling. Similarly, the addiction centers for sugar, there are certain parts of the brain that you may have activated inadvertently that keep lighting up every time you see something sweet. And so what we need to do is we need to deprogram that. It's not just a taste sensation and addictions there. It actually, sugar activates, is believed to activate some of the same centers as narcotics and everything, the addictive narcotics. Fascinating stuff when we think that it can be that addictive. And as you'll learn, sugar is one of the biggest challenges for the brain. So number 6 is your brain activity is as unique as your fingerprint. So, Number 7, your brain is smaller than your ancestors. So this is with anthropological research. They've seen that the brain is basically shrinking. So, and so is our body. Interesting stuff. So again, the power is still there and we're demanding a lot more of our brains, but we have seen the size shrink. Number 8, when you're awake, your brain produces enough actual electrical power to be able to power a small light bulb. So, look, the neurons in the brain make enough electricity to run a light bulb, and yet, it's believed that the amount of power that your brain would require is like massive, could run thousands of homes with the energy. If your brain was a supercomputer, it would require more energy than would be required to run hundreds and hundreds of homes. So it's interesting that the brain requires a lot of energy, but it also produces energy. And the information that's passed around your nervous system, for example, going from your brain down to your arms and your legs when you want to move, travels at maybe 250 kilometers an hour is what they believe, or higher even. So things are happening fast. Feel like things are a bit slow? Well, you might be blocking some of those signals by doing some of the naughty stuff. Number 9 is your brain is mostly fat. So when someone calls you a fat head, then theoretically it's a bit of a compliment. It's a fact. So your thinking cap is your fattest organ in the body, about 60% structural fat. And this is also why we believe and why we endorse so heavily the importance of healthy fat diets. So I remember back in the early 2000s writing about this from the purposes of childhood development and also for ADHD and these sorts of things, because the challenge is that a lot of kids are on diets that are rich in the inflammatory seed oils and all that sort of thing. And so what the research was starting to come out about the fact that, just like a building site, if the raw materials, if all of the things weren't on site to build the house, the contractors just basically go home, but not so for your brain. If there's no good fats on site, your brain will use whatever is there to keep going. It doesn't just go on strike until you deliver the right nutrients. It does what it can. And so if your child, or you when you were a child, if you are not getting the right fats, the healthy fats, the omega-3s and these sorts of things, then your brain didn't develop as good as it could have. It used the wrong raw materials. Now, that doesn't mean there's it's all over for you. There are things we can do. Remember, we can still optimize our mind. We can still increase neurogenesis. But hey, we want to make sure the raw materials are there. And number 10, your brain's storage capacity is virtually unlimited. So it's not like a flash drive where, your hard drives seem to always be running out of room. Like it's like, oh, I need another hard drive. I need another hard drive right now. I'm out of room. But your brain is virtually unlimited in its storage capacity. So, yep, the data gets used up on your smartphone and on your flash drives and your hard drives. Not so with your brain. There's endless power. Number 11, use it or lose it. Your brain is similar to your muscles, and you can build up cognitive reserve, your brain's innate ability to get the job done through different types of learning and experiences. And that's why, in essence, the more you do a task, the easier, more comfortable, more automatic it becomes, because it's not just that it becomes programmed like into the subconscious mind, but your brain's ability to cope, your cognitive reserve becomes better. And this is why in the area of Alzheimer's research and dementia and all that, that they really encourage you to do a lot of brain games. And while that's good if you're retired and there's nothing else to do but brain games, fair enough, good for you if you enjoy that sort of thing. And here in the Savvy team, we just encourage people to be more engaged in things, to be doing more things, to be paying it forward, to be helping people, to be learning and growing, absorbing new information. Like that's why we share all these sorts of classes and everything to help you, not just for your health. It's for your cognitive function too, your cognitive reserve. And number 12, sleep deprivation can affect your brain in many, many ways. How'd you sleep last night? There's a reason that quality and quantity sleep is recommended. If your body doesn't receive the rest, then the restorative time that your brain requires doesn't happen properly. The glymphatic system isn't activated as well. The brainwashing isn't activated. The rejuvenation isn't, and so it isn't activated. Sleep deprivation can actually also kill brain cells, and even create psychosis if long enough. Like they've really done tests where. What an awful test. Yeah, I'll volunteer for that, where they'll stop you from sleeping for days and days at a time. But they have seen that people really do start to lose it. And so of all of the things, judgment, reaction time, all of these do, decrease when you lack sleep. So there's some fun facts, 12 fun facts about your brain. It's a good idea to look after your brain because it is the most important organ in your body. Now, in other sessions, we've talked about the gut-brain connection and the fact that your gut's important too, because there are, through your enteric nervous system, there's more connections basically going from your gut to your brain than from your brain to your gut. But there's a bit of an interplay there going, and your brain is certainly really, really important. So we're about to jump on into World Alzheimer's Day information and what we're calling the end of Alzheimer's. And it seems like I'm going between Alzheimer's and Alzheimer's. So either way, it's all good. But look, this is such an important topic. Please share this information with your communities. Okay, please help us pay it forward. There is good news about this. I'm here to share with you good news. Right today on World Alzheimer's Day, There are lots of people, there's been lots of walks and money raising things and lots of people, lots of really interested community members. I think it's fantastic the amount of support for this particular area. I just assert that that they're walking for the wrong reasons. They're not. They're walking to support people with the disease or walking to support looking for one cure rather than walking to support educating people about what they can do to prevent and reverse cognitive decline. That's what we're. So come walk with us and help people understand what they can do to prevent and reverse cognitive decline here on World Alzheimer's Day. So, yep, as I said, at the time of recording, if you happen to be catching the replay or the podcast, it is World Alzheimer's Day. And as I said before, there's a lot of fighting against this. And we feel there's a bit of misinformation that's spread around. So really, we wanted to take the opportunity to share with you the good news, okay? As I mentioned before, as a child, I saw the effects with my grandmother with steady decline in her, first of all, not being able to recognize family members, and then gradually seeing issues with her ability to move and issues with her ability to control her bladder and all sorts of things. And it was really, really hard for a child really to see and understand that, and certainly not easy for my grandfather and for my parents and everything to watch that and deal with that. And so I saw that firsthand, saw the decline that can happen over the years. And, it was many people actually go downhill very fast, and others it's just such a long decline. And so what I'm here to share with you is that, I guess I want to congratulate you if you're catching this as the podcast, the replay, or if you're here live. Give us a wave if you're here live, because you're one of those people who are willing to take action and learn. And there are many people out there walking for a cure and doing all that sort of thing, and yet they will be blinded to the actual things that they can do today to stack the odds in their favor. And I just think that's crazy. It's crazy to look for one cure that solves the problem when there are things that you can do today that can prevent and even reverse cognitive decline. So we are here to share with you good news. It is a good news day, And so Alzheimer's should be a rare disease, according to Dr. Dale Bredesen, the author of The End of Alzheimer's. Okay? So, really, Alzheimer's should be a rare disease. So this is a good news day. And we're here to encourage you to be nice to your brain. Your brain is arguably the most important organ you have. And, we've been considering that heart disease is the leading killer in the Western world, and your heart is so important, and yet so many people neglect their brain. So it's a bit of a bit of a balancing act between which is more important, the heart or the brain. And, your brain, as I said before, only weighs just a small amount, yet it is a highly complex organ made up of many parts, and years of scientific study has made it possible for scientists to identify and determine its various functions, which is a good thing. But how much love do you really give it? Because it controls and coordinates actions and reactions. It allows you to think, it allows you to feel, it enables you to have memories and feelings, all of the things that make you, you. But do you even spare it a thought? These are some of the issues that we face today in the area of, of brain degeneration, everything. Obviously, here's the thing. I've not seen this information anywhere else, but we believe we're dealing with Alzheimer's disease and, let's say, foggy thinking. We assert that it's somewhat of a spectrum, and that, you might now go, oh boy, I got this foggy thinking, I can't think, it's all still, and then we progress, though, those same symptoms not addressed can lead to Alzheimer's disease. So all of those of you out there with foggy thinking, let's do something about that now, because the evidence now shows that leaving those symptoms undealt with leads to the buildup of what is considered Alzheimer's disease, the amyloid plaque and the tau tangles. You don't need to know all of that, but basically there's plaque buildup and these tangles that go on that basically glue up your brain and stop it from functioning. But it turns out that these things are a reaction. They're not the cause. Yet mostly medicine still believes that it's the cause because it's present with Alzheimer's disease. Just like blocked arteries are present when you have heart disease. But blocked arteries weren't the underlying cause, were they? So that's why when people, this is the challenge. When we've seen in our Healthy Heart Challenge that that many people have had quadruple bypass and then ended up with the disease, ended up with blocked arteries again 5-10 years later because they didn't address the underlying cause. So the artery clogging wasn't the actual cause. And similarly, what researchers have uncovered is that amyloid plaque isn't the cause of Alzheimer's. It's the effect. So what's the cause? Well, there isn't one cause. There's a myriad of lifestyle and associated factors that lead to that decline. That's why I can basically say, true or not in definition, that it's a spectrum. Foggy thinking can eventually progress to Alzheimer's disease. It's not quite as simple as that, but you get the picture. So, but do you even spare a thought for the fact that there are other things that your brain's dealing with? There's mental illness, there's dementia and brain cancer and seizure disorders such as epilepsy and Parkinson's and other movement disorders, stroke and transient ischemic attack, the TIA, these sorts of things that can go on with the brain. The brain's really, really important. So when you hear of all these issues going on out there, you sort of think, well, it is really important, but the general thought is that nothing can be done. So I may as well not know about it. I may as well not worry about it. And that's an untruth in my opinion. So let's look at what we can actually do. And let's look at whether we're, just treating the symptoms of Alzheimer's, putting a focus onto Alzheimer's, or whether we're actually addressing the underlying cause. And I believe that most people are simply treating the symptoms, not addressing those underlying causes of cognitive decline. And, the typical information, typical belief from one website about Alzheimer's. We're here on World Alzheimer's Day talking about this, and this is what one of the medical websites said. Alzheimer's is a leading cause of death and is one of only 10 diseases that cannot be prevented, treated, or maintained. Did you hear that? So medically they said it's a leading cause of death and it's one of only a few diseases that we cannot prevent, treat, or even maintain. The belief is that it's a one-way sentence. It's a one-way death sentence. And it does not have to be that. That's what I said. We're here to share with you good news. There have been discoveries about the fact that there are a number of underlying factors that drive cognitive decline, as I just asserted before. And what medicine currently focuses on, a symptom of the issue, is not the root cause. The amyloid plaque is a symptom, not the root cause. So if we focus on treating the disease without addressing the underlying cause, that's what has led to the belief that Alzheimer's is a one-way death sentence. So, it's been more than 100 years of research into Alzheimer's disease, many doctors, really believing that a cure is not achievable. And I assert that they're believing that a drug-based cure is not achievable. So it's not a death sentence. There's lots that can be done about the area of cognitive decline. But what we need lifestyle changes, holistic wellness-focused changes, nutritive approaches. I assert that they've simply been focusing on the wrong paradigm. Okay, and that's why there's been 100 years of research looking for one issue, one of the issues. What's the one thing that causes this? And there simply isn't one thing. And this is the whole philosophy that we teach here in in what we do here in the Savvy team. That it's about are you attacking the symptoms or are you correcting the underlying causes? And we put forward this illness wellness continuum, originally put forward by Dr. John Travis. In that most people in the treatment paradigm are looking to treat the symptoms and the signs to sort of get back to a not sick point, a neutral point. Whereas the wellness paradigm, which is a complementary paradigm, it can begin at any stage, but can take you way past not sick to a higher level of wellness. So, again, the researchers and the information I'll be sharing with you, many people have focused on a cognitive improvement program alongside medication and had tremendous results, because medication only really does one particular thing, doesn't cover the whole issue. So even if you are looking at medication, if your doctor has you on medication for some ailment, that's okay. Work with your doctor alongside general lifestyle improvement to correct the underlying causes, and eventually, chances are, your doctor may be able to work with you and get you off the medication. And that's good news. But there's certainly good news here as we're talking about Alzheimer's disease, because Alzheimer's, as we know now, should be a rare disease. And that's really why we're here with a bit of a save your brain movement, really. A save your brain movement. Dr. Dale Bredesen, author of The End of Alzheimer's, says there's a lot you can do about Alzheimer's. The reality is Alzheimer's should be a rare disease, knowing what we know now. And that's why I said this is such important information to share, to do whatever you can to get your communities to understand it, your friends, family members, workmates, all of that, because many people don't understand that what they're doing today is having an impact. So, look, dementia is one of the major causes of disability and dependency amongst older people worldwide. And as I said before, Alzheimer's is 60 to 70% of dementia, the classification of dementia. And the diagnosis is really some specifics such as the presence of amyloid plaque and these sorts of things. And it was only that the Dr. Alzheimer's many years ago in the early 1900s, I believe, a bit earlier, 1800s, I think. Okay. Got a bit of an issue here. I hope that went okay. Bear with me. We've just come up with a glitch here in the system. Hopefully it's all good. Hopefully you're getting everything okay. Something in my system just said that there was an issue there. Yeah, so in essence, really, we're dealing here with potentially the wrong paradigm. So it's a fundamental error there that essentially the population, the medical establishment, has been looking for a magic bullet. And most of the time what is happening is that there's even physicians are taught. I've listened to a lot of physicians just leading up to this, a lot of talks from different doctors and everything, and they all were saying that what they're taught in medical school is the Occam's razor theory. What's the fine line? What's the minimum effective dose? What's the one thing, the magic bullet that can deal with everything? Rather than looking at a system, looking at holistic, zooming out and going, rather than the one thing, what are all of the factors that come together to cause disease? And they've started to look at that. Let's face it, with heart disease, they know there's a bunch of lifestyle factors. They know there's all sorts of different things that lead to that. So, and yet they haven't really been identifying all of those things or focused on all of those things with cognitive decline. They're still looking for the magic bullet, and that's why it's failed in the research into looking for that, because maybe it won't be found. Maybe that's the issue. And so, I believe that it's sort of a fundamental belief that the body's being propped up, or that the body is innately flawed and needs to be propped up with medication or a procedure. And so we need a paradigm shift in cognitive decline to really realize that it's multifaceted. And so that's why we've put together what we call the Healthy Brain Action Plan, so that you can, really prevent and maybe even reverse cognitive decline. And so this is all focused around educating community members about what they can do to improve their all-round health and improve their brain function no matter what age they are, or you are. So the interesting thing is that some of the cutting-edge research that's been done in the area of cognitive decline, and it being a multifactorial disease, in essence, what excites me has in essence mirrored our wellness philosophy here in the Savvy team, our easy as 1, 2, 3 wellness philosophy. Basically, the research has uncovered that all of the things that you need to do is exactly what we've been asserting for decades that you need to do to optimize your well-being now. So if you're doing all of the things, then you're also optimizing your brain function long term. You're looking after your brain. You're looking after your cardiovascular system. You're looking after the cells of your body. You're looking after your gut. And all of those systems work together to optimize you, not just this body part and this body part and this body part and all that sort of thing. So that's really what we're here to do, to really share with you the good news. And people, you don't have to be old or have dementia to want to save your brain, okay? So if you've been off, if you've had brain fog, if you just don't really feel your best, foggy thinking, inability to cope, high levels of stress, these are all sort of unwanted symptoms of the industrialized lifestyle. And unfortunately, many people have a lot of convenience foods and factory farms meats and things, and none of these actually support our brain function, let alone any other part of the body either. But a high percentage of people do end up with nutritional deficiencies, from what we've seen, with sugar overload, with lack of sleep, high amounts of stress, and these all deplete not only energy levels but the ability of your brain to function. And your brain relies on a steady stream of vitamins, minerals, amino acids, essential fatty acids, all of these sorts of things, and getting enough rest and relaxation. Luckily, brain fog is an easily repaired condition. And so if you want clear-headedness, focus, all of these sorts of things, then it all starts with focusing on these underlying issues. And as I was saying before, if we think of this as a spectrum, correcting mental decline requires the same sorts of things, but it just may take longer to see the response. Just looking at brain fog, here are some of the symptoms that people generally report when they're talking about brain fog. Things like low energy and fatigue, chronic fatigue syndrome, irritability, trouble concentrating, headaches, forgetfulness, trouble remembering information, low motivation, feeling hopeless or depressed, anxiety, confusion, trouble sleeping at night, difficulty exercising. It's like, so there's some of the symptoms of brain fog? That sounds awfully like some of the symptoms of early Alzheimer's disease. So let's not freak out. Let's realize that we can make some changes right now, today. So here's, it's interesting when we really think about that whole issue. 20 years or more before symptoms appear, the brain changes of Alzheimer's begin. So 20 years or more before you see the symptoms of Alzheimer's, the brain changes have begun. That's why it's never too soon and it's never too late, to really focus on prevention. So, when we look at Benjamin Franklin said an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. Well, are we really curing these diseases? Are we really curing? Or are we then simply supplying the things back that the body needed in the original stage to constantly prevent? Are we basically constantly, day by day, preventing disease? Because cure asserts that essentially we fix it and it is no more. But really, it's a constant prevention. That's why I assert that an ounce of prevention is worth a ton of intervention. And, when we look at it, we were talking there before about the fact we've got heart disease and we've got Alzheimer's and dementia. Which is more important, your heart or your brain? Well, think about your family members. So here I had family members die from cardiovascular disease and brain, like as in my aunt from an aneurysm. So that's again something that, a burst vessel in the brain essentially. Other family members from cardiovascular disease, one from dementia. So, which is more important, your heart or your brain? Well, typical medicine says that we've got to focus on this issue or this issue or this issue or this issue. Why don't we zoom out and actually focus on the whole body and what we can do to nourish every single part of our body, because they're all important. Everything's important. And but certainly here, since we're talking about the brain, we're on, as I said, a bit of a save your brain movement. So let's focus a little bit on these big issues of Alzheimer's and dementia. What's the difference? Well, Alzheimer's disease is a degenerative brain disease and the most common form of dementia. Dementia is more like a classification, like a group of symptoms, not a specific disease. So Alzheimer's leads to cell death and tissue loss throughout the brain, and over time the brain essentially shrinks and affects nearly all functions of the body. And that's why some people sort of say that, but how can people die from Alzheimer's? Well, in essence, because it affects every function of the brain, lots of things can go wrong. So scientists can also essentially see the effect of Alzheimer's disease when they look at brain tissue under the microscope. And this is what I didn't complete before about Dr. Alzheimer's basically saw and this is why it was called Alzheimer's disease, he was the first to see some of these brain changes in autopsies. He saw changes in the brain that he didn't understand, and he started to first report that, and eventually later on it was labeled the type of dementia that had these plaques and everything was labeled Alzheimer's disease. And so this has been the common thought in medicine, the plaque and tangle theory of Alzheimer's. So a plaque is abnormal clusters of these protein fragments that build up between the nerve cells, and dead and dying nerve cells contain these tangles that sort of get twisted up around each other. So the plaques form when protein pieces that you may have heard of beta amyloid clump together. And this beta amyloid comes, sort of surrounding the fatty membrane and surrounding the nerve cells in an essentially sort of becomes sticky and gradually builds up as plaque and almost sort of, almost starves the brain's signaling. And this is what leads to the decline. So most of the focus has been around what can we do to attack the plaque, get rid of the plaque. And many people who have used drug therapy to attack the plaque have seen their symptoms get worse, because we're missing one fundamental fact in most research to Alzheimer's, that the plaque and the tangles are the effect, not the cause. And so what the biggest discovery is that they have actually been rather than a natural protective effect of the body. So rather than the body being innately flawed and it's got this crazy mismatch of buildup of plaque, why is the brain doing this? How stupid is the brain? In actual fact, that was a protective mechanism, because, the brain, what we assert is the body is an amazing triage, emergency management system. And so it sort of says, it does things that sort of says, we're not getting enough nutrition around here. When's Buggerlugs going to start feeding us the right things? Or, wow, there's a lot of toxicity. We're being exposed to a lot of nasty things from this bad diet and everything. Well, let's go into crisis management until Buggerlugs here sorts out the diet. And so what's happening in our modern world is that the body's constantly doing this triage, this management, hoping that things are going to get better, but you never make the changes to make it get better. So the diseases progress. Cancer, heart disease, Alzheimer's. It's ultimately a degeneration in the body because of too much toxicity, not enough nutrition. Really, that's what we've asserted for a long time. I can't believe I'm that old. But anyway, lucky we have anti-aging programs too. All right, so what are some of the things here that we can look at, and what are some of the early signs of Alzheimer's? Now, I went through this before somewhat, but memory loss that disrupts your daily life. This is a common thing in the early stages. Challenges in planning and problem solving. So that's another thing there. And so when you think about it, memory loss that disrupts daily life, it's not like Alzheimer's is not linked to aging. It's something that happens differently to that. So, it's typical to forget a name or an appointment, but remember them later. It's different. Memory loss that disrupts your daily life is different in Alzheimer's. When we're dealing with challenges in planning or problem solving, that's, some people really have trouble with numbers and following plans and everything. They may have difficulty concentrating. Whereas what's typical for aging, making an occasional error with the managing your finances or bills or whatever. That's typical. So that's not Alzheimer's, but it's a spectrum. So number 3, difficulty completing familiar tasks. So people with Alzheimer's often find it hard to complete general daily tasks. Trouble driving to a familiar location, organizing a grocery list, even remembering the rules of their favorite game. Whereas, when you think about typical age-related change, forgetting how to use the settings in the microwave or the TV or your phone or something like that. So number 4, another early sign and symptom of Alzheimer's is confusion with time and place. Is one of the early things, like not even being able to read a clock or lose track of dates and those sorts of things. Okay, whereas what's a typical age-related change? Well, can't remember the day of the week, but remembering it a bit later on. So, what day of the week is it? So that's not Alzheimer's. That's just typical stuff that can go on. So number 5 is trouble understanding visual images and spatial relationships. So for some people, visual problems is one of the first signs of Alzheimer's. So trouble with balance, trouble reading, trouble judging distances, trouble judging contrast and things when driving, for example. And then many people don't want to go to the doctor because they fear losing their license in that instance. Whereas, what is typical age-related change? It could be just simple vision changes due to other age-related eye disorders. So number 6 is new problems with words in speaking or writing. So people living with Alzheimer's may have trouble following or joining in on a typical conversation. They may stop in the middle of the conversation and sort of have no idea how to continue, or they may repeat themselves. They may struggle with vocabulary, typical using the wrong name, like calling one of the things I read there, calling a watch a hand clock, for example. So, again, if your loved ones around you and you see these sorts of things, often people with the early stages avoid telling anyone. So you can really help do something about this. So, whereas, having trouble finding the right word is a typical problem that we can have with foggy thinking. It doesn't mean you have Alzheimer's. Number 7, misplacing things and losing the ability to retrace steps. So, we all probably go, where did I put the keys? I can't remember. It's a spectrum, okay? So you don't stress out if you go, what do you mean? I can't. It's not all bad. So misplacing things and losing the ability to retrace steps. So a person living with Alzheimer's may put things in unusual places. Why are the keys in the fridge? I know. Like, again, this is a spectrum. This is happening a lot more with people with early stage Alzheimer's. So, the typical thing is is misplacing things from time to time, but being able to retrace your steps to find them. Okay. Whereas in Alzheimer's, they lose the ability to retrace their steps. When we're looking at the next one, decreased or poor judgment. And people with Alzheimer's then end up experiencing changes in their decision-making, their ability to judge. dealing with money, paying less attention to their grooming, those sorts of things. Whereas, we all make a bad mistake once in a while, but it becomes more prevalent when you're dealing with early Alzheimer's. Withdrawal from work or social activities, that can be another indicator as well. Changes in mood and personality can be a big one there. Becoming confused, suspicious, fearful, more anxious, being upset when at home or when friends come over, or getting out of their comfort zone more. Whereas, typical stuff is, we can become a little bit irritated when our routine is disrupted or whatever. But it's, again, that's why I assert that we're dealing with a spectrum here of typical stress and brain fog. And then at the further end of things, we've seen the brain changes going on that lead to more Alzheimer's. So again, this is something that I'm asserting, that we're dealing with a spectrum that goes from high levels of stress and anxiety and all of their modern day demands we put on ourselves. And if we don't deal with those long term, then we're dealing with the issues of cognitive decline. So when we look at these stages that I have up on here, this is just a bit of a visual representation from the Alzheimer's Association website in looking at the changes that happen and the stages. So typically, when we're dealing with the first one there, the changes happen with mood and personality first of all, okay? So when in mild to moderate, well, is it mood and personality? I'll just look for what the evidence said here from the site. So in mild to moderate Alzheimer's, the parts of the brain that are impacted are more of the planning and thinking parts of the brain. So not the serious memory and all that sort of thing, but things that interfere with social life, work life, getting confused, handling money, those sorts of things. That's the early stages, the mild to moderate. And so when things develop to, in that second image that you can see if you're watching the actual live sessions or the replay, this is dealing when it starts to affect your speaking and your understanding of speech, etc. So, and then when we progress to severe Alzheimer's, it's where most of the cerebral cortex is becoming damaged and your brain is actually shrinking. And this is where people start to not recognize family and loved ones or even be able to care for themselves. So that's sort of the progression that goes on. But when we're looking at this whole issue, it's really important to realize that neurodegenerative disease has been the area of greatest biomedical failure. So you're not going to get the answer from a medication. Let's look at the prevalence and the key facts and statistics around Alzheimer's and dementia. When we look at it, it's the leading cause of death in the UK. Dementia is the second leading cause of death for Australians, and it's the third leading cause of death in the US. So this is a massive problem, with one person every 3 seconds around the world ending up being diagnosed with dementia. That's astounding. So this is a major issue that, is sort of not being talked about, and not being talked about what we can do to prevent it either. Now, ladies, so let me just talk, before I talk about you ladies, in 2016, dementia became the leading cause of death of Australian women, surpassing heart disease. So in 2016, it surpassed heart disease, which has been the leading cause of death for both men and women since pretty much the early 20th century. So this is what I was saying before when I was saying we're dealing with a little bit of a, yo-yo. What's more important? Well, if we focus on the underlying issues, we actually look after both the heart and the brain. Whereas if we focus on, the effect, we're going to be on a cocktail of medications and we're going to be like fighting one fire after another. We must change our paradigm and start focusing on the underlying issues that lead to the disease in the body. So yes, in 2016, dementia became the leading cause of a death for Australian women. It actually passed heart disease. So since then, That's been our leading cause of death. Females account for 64.5% of all dementia-related deaths. So sorry, ladies, and I'll tell you a bit about why. A lot of researchers are really starting to see that, and maybe I'm getting ahead of myself here, but because it also happens after, there's a lot of links that happen after menopause. So if women aren't managing their health after menopause and they're seeing osteoporosis and hormone decline, these are some of the underlying factors that lead to dementia. So they're actually more interlinked than you really realize. So if you don't manage your health and balance your hormones, menopausal symptoms are another sign that the body's not functioning. It's like a warning sign. And if you don't balance those, then you're also not balancing the things that will support your brain. Because the scientists have essentially discovered that these trophic factors, these things that support the brain, are things like hormones for women, progesterone and estradiol, and for men, testosterone, and these sorts of things. So, in other words, if you have hormonal dysfunction, it's a sign, a warning sign, that you're also not looking after your brain. And you're going to have a higher risk of Alzheimer's disease. So that's what I mean. This is actually, don't freak out. This is good news. That means that you can do something about it because, again, we can tackle. Isn't it nice that there's a warning light going off that you have something going on in your body? Let's tackle that. And that's what our wellness programs, what our community is about, supporting you in tackling those things early from a holistic wellness point of view. Because if you simply end up on HRT, that won't prevent Alzheimer's because it never corrected the problem. It masked the problem. So medication can't correct the problem. It can only be a Band-Aid until you get your life in order, really, in my opinion. So, all right. So, look, an average of 36 people died per day where dementia was the underlying cause in 2016. Most were female. So, this is really big. This is really big. The cost, the estimated cost in Australia is $15 billion. So, and many experts are saying that this is going to bankrupt the healthcare systems around the world if things aren't controlled. It's the single greatest cause of disability in older Australians over 65, and the third leading cause of disability burden overall. So, the single greatest cause of disability in those aged 65 or older. Pretty incredible. So before I said that Dr. Dale Bredesen said that neurodegenerative disease has been the area of greatest biomedical failure. What do we mean by that? Well, here is information from the National Center for Health Statistics, and looking at this. These are US statistics, but reported on the Alzheimer's Organization website. But nevertheless, what they're essentially saying is that medical procedures have not been able to really reverse death in breast cancer by much. That's why there was a slight increase. Their medical procedures have been able to reduce deaths from prostate cancer, from heart disease, from stroke, and from HIV. But in actual fact, we've seen a 145% increase in the deaths from dementia between 2000 and 2017. So this is why it is, the greatest biomedical failure. And when you look at the caregivers too, there's a huge drain on time, money, anguish for the caregivers as well, because many people with Alzheimer's and dementia can live as long as 20 years with the problem. The studies indicate that the average survival is around about 4 to 8 years after diagnosis. So that's pretty scary too. But especially disturbing when we realize that what researcher Dr. Dale Bredesen found is that Alzheimer's should be a rare disease. And that's why we're here on this particular episode of the Healthy Wealthy Wise show to talk about the end of Alzheimer's. And so, as Bredesen said, there's a lot that you can do about Alzheimer's. The reality is that it should be a rare disease. And he is an internationally recognized expert in the mechanisms of neurodegenerative disease and wrote this book, End of Alzheimer's. Now, he spent 28 years of neuroscientific research in the lab where he decided, let's look at the actual drivers, the underlying factors. Why do people get Alzheimer's? Why is it so common? And the truth is that he actually thought, this is the interesting thing, that he actually expected there to be one thing. So he went to the lab, set up a facility, started the research. I'm amazed that there are these people who are just passionate about looking for one thing. So, all kudos to him. But he really believed as a researcher that he would find one molecule that was the cause and they could trigger it with medication. He really believed that. Now, his wife, being more of an integrative physician, so more understanding how the body works, holistic, functional, restorative type of medicine, she said to him 30 years ago, you know what you're going to find in the lab? You're going to find that it'll come back to lack of nutrition, toxicity, sleep, stress. And he said, nope. It'll be one thing. I'm going to find the one thing. Everything he found in the lab that led to the program in this book was that it's everything that we teach. That it's the underlying factors. Initially, he identified 36 factors that he called 36 holes in the roof. And the medications only plugged one, so they didn't really do anything for Alzheimer's. That's why it was the greatest biomedical failure, because you can't use a medication to plug every hole. But when you plug all of the holes, you deal with all of the underlying factors, as we call them, you heal. And that's what he found in the test tube and took that to people and has seen the reversal of cognitive decline. And he wrote about it in The End of Alzheimer's. So, that's what he really thought. So it's understandable that many people are still fixated on the old thing. He spent his years of his life thinking he would find the one thing and only to discover that he was wrong. He had to change his paradigm and that his wife was right. Many guys probably... I know my wife was right, But again, ladies, if you're always right, why are we still seeing most women dying from Alzheimer's and dementia? Because it's not about being right; it's about taking action on things. That's a topic for another story. So, Bredesen asserts that 20th century medicine was about finding the one thing. It was the area of infectious diseases and everything. So if we found the bug and gave it a drug, found the bug and gave it a drug, then we could correct the issue. Now, he asserts that, yes, there were probably a lot of things going on to do with the immune system, but there was the ability to just kill the bug and the body would get over the disease. And he said, now we're dealing with a multifactorial disease, multifactorial mechanisms. So we really need to look at chronic disease as something where you're not going to find one thing. And this is the way we like to sort of think about it. In essence, if you're a bit of a classic, let's say you're a classic, and you're taking, you want to rejuvenate your body. Do you just plug the holes in the rust, or do you also restore the engine? Do you also restore you get new tires? What one thing do you choose to restore when you restore the vehicle? There's many different mechanisms. And so, if you're a bit of a classic, meaning that you're a bit older and more mature, then you just think about it. If you've serviced a car, what happens as the car gets older? The more Ks, the services seem to get bigger. There's more safety checks. There's more preventative things that need to be replaced. There's more emphasis that needs to be put on the health of the car. Whereas a new car, drive it, it works. But more care needs to be taken with an old car, or let's face it, a collectible. Are you a collectible? Do you deserve being nurtured and looked after and restored? Well, I think you do, and that's what we want to restore. We want to help you restore yourself to your former glory. Okay, and so let's keep you on the road and looking sharp. So what can we do to save your brain? What can we do to save your brain? Well, in essence, we can take control. There are a number of different bio-influences that have been found. And so what I love is that Bredesen sort of speaks about it in the same way as osteoporosis. Now, we've talked about osteoporosis. We've done talks around that on the Healthy, Wealthy, Wise show, so you can go back and look at those. But in essence, osteoporosis happens when your osteoblastic activity, the cells that build bone, is basically chronically exceeded by your osteoclastic activity, the cells that chew up the old bone. So that's what's constantly going on in your body. There's constantly this interplay between, in osteoporosis, between the cells that are building up the bone and the cells that are chewing up the old bone. And you want to chew up the old bone because it's the old damaged stuff and all that sort of thing. And so what happens is when the chewing up cells exceed the building up cells, we end up with osteoporosis, so that steady decline. And so the medical treatments simply slow the chewing, so the bone sort of stays not so strong. It's the same thing that we're dealing with. And so Bredesen asserts that it's exactly the same thing with Alzheimer's, that he says the things that encourage the synaptoblastic activity, the things that build new brain cells, that build neurons, aren't there. And so Alzheimer's is a chronic, too much of the synaptoclastic activity, the things that chew up old brain cells or clog up the brain cells, they exceed the synaptoblastic, the building. And the easy way to think about osteoblasts and clasts, for example, B for build and C for chew up. But I just thought that was really fascinating, that Bredesen was, in essence, saying that it's very, very similar. And so what we need to do is we need to look at the holistic things, the underlying causes, diet. Do you eat too many processed foods, too much carbs? Do you have a gut problem? Do you have leaky gut? Do you have blocked detoxification pathways? Is your mitochondria all burnt up and you're low in energy? Is your microbiome all out of whack? These are all implicated in the health of your body and in the health of your overall body, but also implicated in Alzheimer's disease. So research guided them to the new paradigm, and they started working with people in 2012. So it's no guess, it works. All of this works. They have seen patients actually restored, and they've seen brain scan improvements as well. Now, so in other words, they just simply reduced the problem things, increased the good things, and people got results. It doesn't seem like a groundbreaking change, but it's now been proven with cognitive decline. So not only can we improve the general health of your body, improve your energy levels, improve your cardiovascular risk factors, but we can also reduce your risk of Alzheimer's and dementia by optimizing the underlying factors. So we need to decrease the negative bio-influences and increase the positive ones, and your body heals. It's actually not that hard. That's why we call the philosophy wellness. It's not that hard, because it's not that hard. Disease is complicated, where all these researchers are looking for the underlying one thing, and this molecule and this molecule and this molecule. And it's great to know, because we can then target in and optimize the weakest areas of our body. But if we just focus holistically, if we zoom out, we can do amazing things. We can do amazing things. So Bredesen himself actually thought that he would die in the labs, like he would still be studying mice and test tube things, but he would have furthered the research. Little did he realize that he would actually end up in a holistic wellness focus. But off the holistic wellness focus and onto a little bit of memory challenges, what are some of the drugs that actually can trigger memory loss that you might want to be aware of? Well, here are 9 types of drugs that can cause memory loss. Now, I'm not going to go into these deeper. I'll probably be going into these more in depth in a masterclass we're doing. So look out for our Healthy Brain Action Plan. But I wanted to let you know about these, because things such as antibiotics can actually impact your memory. And a lot of this is believed to be through the gut-brain connection. Antihistamines can actually be problems for, dizziness and sleep, but also because they can mess with your neurotransmitters. They can actually cause problems like memory loss and confusion and those sorts of things that may actually be considered early Alzheimer's. Sleeping pills can actually dampen the brain activity in certain parts of the brain that are responsible for memory. So that could, that's an issue. The statins, it's pretty well known that statin drugs, used to lower cholesterol, can mess with the brain. And so again, with all of these medications, you've got to weigh up the risk factors against the positive benefits. Any of the antipsychotics also can, mess with the dopamine receptors in the brain. And so that can end up causing issues and even memory problems. Antihypertensive, all of the blood pressure medications can interfere with the messages in your brain that can affect your memory and your verbal skills even. So that's a problem. So antidepressants and anti-anxiety medication, all of those sorts of things can dampen the activity in the brain that relates to short and long-term memory. So that can be a problem. Narcotic painkillers and anticonvulsants. These, really essentially decrease the flow of brain signals in the central nervous system. And essentially, they're slowing down the brain. This slowdown of the brain inhibits the function in the areas of learning and memory. So it can sort of, memory problems can show up. You don't have Alzheimer's, you don't have dementia, you don't have foggy thinking. You basically have a side effect of a medication. And then Parkinson's drugs too can have an issue with the signaling pathways in the brain that, largely again function around learning and memory and, ability to get things done. So again, really, really important to just be aware that things can be side effects and not really actual cognitive decline. And also really, really important if you have a loved one that is maybe showing signs of cognitive decline, not to get worried, to make sure you check medication and some of those sorts of things first, because it simply could be a side effect. We've seen community members that have really worked with their doctor to get off statins, for example, and they've just sort of said that when they were able to get off it, they said it was like the fog lifted, like that they had this constant fog and it lifted. So, again, sometimes it can be a simple solution, and let's go for the simple solution. So when we look at cognitive decline, then there are a whole bunch of things that have been put together here, and this was from the Journal of Geriatric Mental Health, where they put together this thing to look at the things that they see have already that helped increase the risk of cognitive decline or decrease the risk. So obviously things such as traumatic brain injury, that is a type of Alzheimer's that we're not really dealing with. Midlife obesity has been linked to that. So are you overweight? Do you need to lose weight? You are of an increased risk of Alzheimer's and dementia. Midlife hypertension, current smoking, diabetes, all of these have strong evidence for increased risk. So again, these are underlying issues. Let's deal with them. Let's together deal with them. We have action plans to help you. We can't help with traumatic brain injury, I'm afraid, but really in dealing with obesity and diabetes and some of these sorts of things, let's clean up your diet. Let's improve your ability to be more insulin sensitive. If you have a history of depression, sleep disturbances, or high cholesterol, these will increase your risk for Alzheimer's and cognitive decline. Interestingly, if you have a lot of formal education, there's strong evidence for a decreased risk. Excuse me. If you have a lot of excuse me. All right. If you have a lot of physical activity. So again, physical activity also decreases. There's strong evidence for a decrease in the prevalence of cognitive decline. There's some evidence for the Mediterranean diet and continued cognitive training also decreasing your risk factors. A little bit of alcohol has been linked to a lower risk, and certainly social engagement has been linked, but the evidence is unclear. So when you really look at that, there's lots of things that we do and can do to stack the odds in our favor. So what can we specifically do? What are some of the things that Bredesen found in his research that we can specifically do to target this? Let's have a look at that. Looking across the board, these are all of the things that had strong links here. So right across everything here that's on here have like these are the holes in the roof, so to speak. These are the things, if we think about the car analogy that I was sharing there, these are the things that we actually need to fix up to restore it to its former glory. And the ones with the star on it are the most common. So what are the most common? Let's look at the most common. Stress and cortisol imbalances, poor sleep habits, hormonal imbalance, food intolerances, especially grains, sugar, and dairy, being sedentary, AGE and ROS. This is the advanced glycation end products. This is essentially from a high sugar diet, and ROS, reactive oxygen species. So in essence, this is from a lack of antioxidants through supplementation or diet. Glycotoxic, okay, meaning this is actually where Bredesen even calls this a specific type of Alzheimer's, where you basically have too much sugar. You've been eating too much sugar, and we have an overload of sugar in our Western diet today. So diabetes is a leading killer, and so this is linked. So there's one of the best things that you can do is follow our Eat Savvy protocol and decrease your carbohydrate consumption. You will dramatically decrease your risk of all sorts of things. Head trauma, obviously, that's again another type of vascular. So there's vascular dementia, and then there's also trauma dementia. So these are different types of dementia than we're mostly talking about in the things that we can prevent. And then there's just suboptimal nutrition, These have all been linked. But look at the rest of the things too. Infections, allergens, man-made chemicals, biotoxins, poor gut health, mitochondrial impairment, social isolation. This sounds like a lot of the things that we talk about. If you've ever been on any of our other masterclasses or our free web classes or Facebook Lives or the Healthy Wealthy Wife Show, we've talked about some of these things before. Isn't that fascinating? These are all the same things. So if we actually can identify what's impacting us, we can address that and correct the imbalances moving forward. What if we don't know? Well, if we just focus holistically and use this as a bit of an action plan, then we're good to go. It's pretty amazing when you think about it. It's actually quite simple. Wellness is not that hard. So when we look at that particular chart, we tend to focus on chemical exposure and toxins. Let's decrease toxin exposure. Then suboptimal nutrition. Let's get the nutrition up. And then we say optimize the body's systems. And these are things like your detoxification pathways, because that will help you to get the toxins out. Your mitochondria, which is implicated in this particular chart. Your general gut health, also important. Also linked the gut-brain connection there. In particular here, many people think, yes, but see, dementia runs in my family. Well, in actual fact, it's rare. The people that suffer with Alzheimer's and dementia, the actual true genetic link is very, very rare, less than 95% of cases. So most of the cases of Alzheimer's and dementia are caused by these factors. Okay. Now, one of the things in there you see is the ApoE4. Now, that's not even the most common. That's not one of the biggest issues. Now, this is one of the genetic markers that you can look for that actually deal with your risk for Alzheimer's. It's not, it isn't the Alzheimer's gene. It's just a particular marker because of how we've developed as a society, how you may have developed. It means that you may not have developed to be able to cope with certain dietary and lifestyle factors. Your genetic heritage doesn't set you up to deal with things like your friend or your partner or whatever. And so by knowing your ApoE4 status, you can optimize, you can reduce your risk of Alzheimer's, reduce your risk of cardiovascular disease, because you basically know what your genes are predicated towards. And then through the theory, really the science of epigenetics, you can change the expression of your genetics today by the actions and the thoughts and everything that you do. So it's very easy. One of the first things that Bredesen suggests is to actually find out, even though, looking at this, it's not even the most important. It's not even the most important. But if you're really concerned, one of the things that you can do is get a simple test. And if your doctor won't do your ApoE4 status, then we can point you in the right direction. It's very easy for you to request it yourself and find out your status, and then you know. Now, some people don't want to know whether they're likely, they have a higher risk of Alzheimer's and cardiovascular disease. But that's because you believe in the genetic theory. If you understand the epigenetic science, by knowing, you can take control. You have control. Whereas if you're driving blind, you don't know. You don't know what to do. So that's something you can do. You don't want to do that? Let's just help you deal with all of the other things that we're talking about here. And that's what our masterclass is all about. We're really going to be going through, in the Healthy Brain action plan, we're going to be going through that in more depth. So if we look at this, there's a whole bunch of things that we can do to improve our all-around wellness. But, Superman, he couldn't cope with kryptonite. And it turns out that your brain and your body can't deal with a whole bunch of things that are just like kryptonite. Just like kryptonite. So your body can't deal with grains. Your body can't deal with a lot of sugar. Your body can't deal with vegetable oils. These are very inflammatory. Chemicals, molds, other anti-nutrients in a lot of foods. Lectins, these can be inflammatory. Lectins are in things such as a lot of the grains, a lot of the even legumes, improperly prepared legumes, endogenous toxins, so things that your body produces just by your detox pathways not being properly done. The free radicals from the chemicals out there, your body's not able to deal with it. Chronic stress hormones. These are all kryptonite for your system. Kryptonite for your brain, kryptonite for your mitochondria, kryptonite for your energy, kryptonite. So, what did Superman have to do? He had to get as far away from the kryptonite as he possibly could. And funnily enough, too, if we go into Superman theory and comics, he got his energy from the sun. There's a lot more of that goes on too. Optimizing your vitamin D, getting the benefits from sunshine. A lot of people are scared of the sunshine. Superman got his energy from the sun. Anyway, I'm not a real Superman fan. I just happened to come across that. Anyway, so what can we do? What can we actually do here? Well, that's why we assert that achieving optimal well-being, improved productivity, and even a healthier brain can simply be as easy as 1, 2, 3. Decrease your toxin exposure from all sources. Alter your diet. Follow the Eat Savvy approach. Look to the home. Look to safer products in the home, and we can help you there. We partner with brands that produce safe products. Maybe look at whether there's mold going on in your home, whether you've got heavy metal exposure, whether you still have amalgams in your teeth, whether you have a water filter or those sorts of things. Decrease toxin exposure from as many sources as possible. Some of these are man-made toxins, some of these are natural toxins. So meaning that nightshade vegetables can be toxins for people. So this is the tomatoes, eggplant. These contain anti-nutrients. Potatoes, the lectins, all of these things. If we decrease all of these things, we reduce inflammation in the body. We increase nutrition and we optimize the body systems. So I'm not going to go through this in depth, but in essence, all of the research that Bredesen found is that it could be boiled down to the thing that we call Alzheimer's disease is actually a protective response to these 3 core insults on the body. Chronic inflammation, what he calls lack of trophic support, and toxin exposure. Well, that sounds awfully like what I have just been dealing with. Okay, so chronic inflammation triggered by all sorts of things, whether it be Lyme disease, parasites, leaky gut, poor diet, your microbiome not being good. Chronic inflammation triggers a protective response in the brain, and it then makes the amyloid plaque. Because amyloid plaque is an amazing antimicrobial and anti-inflammatory. It's the natural response of the body because you, buggerlugs, have been doing things that increase inflammation in your body. Number two, a lack of trophic support. Well, that sounds awfully like our second thing as well, where we say lack of nutrition. Nutrition is one of the trophic supporters. So things that support the aspects of the body. Okay, so getting nutrition, balancing your hormones, getting more vitamin D, brain-derived neurotrophic factor. These are all trophic supports. These are all things that support the development and growth of specific groups of neurons in your brain. Your brain has a massive amount of connections that really sort of need to be supported. And when you take away that support, your brain does the same thing as, maybe your boss does, your company does. When there's lots of funds around, okay, we can hire new people. Let's put on more staff. Let's grow. But when there's no support there, when there's nothing coming in, then the business says, okay, we can't hire new people. The brain says we can't add new memories. In fact, we need to do some layoffs here. We need to downsize. So a business downsizes, and so does your brain. In essence, Alzheimer's is the programmatic downsizing that your brain does because it's not getting the support that it requires. So the last one was toxin exposure. These are things like molds, parasites, heavy metals, chemicals, mercury, those sorts of things. And so what your brain does to protect itself is it makes the plaque. So whether it's protecting itself from inflammation, whether it's protecting itself from exposure to toxins, whether it's protecting itself from a bug, your brain is actually doing its job. Amyloid plaque that medicine believes is the cause of Alzheimer's is actually the protective response of the body. So what we need to do is we need to get rid of the things that are causing the body to produce the plaque. So that's really what we're dealing with here. That's really what we're dealing with. So if we can correct these things, we can end up improving our response. We'll, like in the now, for those of you without Alzheimer's disease, you'll feel better. You'll look better. You'll have less foggy thinking. You'll have clarity of thought because these same sorts of things, these same sorts of things increase risk of all diseases. So, so much has been done, and there's so much that we can actually really do. So most of the people are deficient. Most people are deficient. So, with all of this, Bredesen tried to get a clinical trial going initially before he started just working with patients. And he was turned down. You want to know why he was turned down? Because it's too complicated. We need to find one thing that will solve the issue of Alzheimer's. That's too complicated. Well, there's not one thing. Which system of your body are you most interested in looking after? What system do you want to look after? So this is why I just love what Bredesen said, that there's a lot you can do about Alzheimer's. The reality is that Alzheimer's should be a rare disease. And that's why what we need to do is we need to optimize all of your body's systems. And that's why I was saying to you there, you might not end up with Alzheimer's, but your disease tends to show up in your personal area of greatest weakness. So holistic wellness-focused programs help all your body systems. You can tweak things to most support your area of greatest weakness. So you just look at this. So when we look at this tree analogy, diet, nutrition, biochemical balance, all of the things, amino acids, vitamins, minerals, enzymes, these are the trophic factors, other trophic factors, all of the things that go on to support the health of the systems of your body. these are all your circulatory system, your endocrine system, nervous system, lymphatic system, excretory system, reproductive system, skeletal system, immune system, respiratory system, digestive system. The problem will go on in your personal area of greatest weakness. So just because it shows up in your brain and nervous system doesn't mean that we should just deal with that area. We need to support every system of the body, or otherwise essentially disease just moves to another place. So achieving optimal well-being, improved productivity, and a healthier brain, easy as 1, 2, 3. That's what we've really got to do. So one of the first things we deal with is the toxin side of things, and we have a free report. You can ask us for that. In fact, I think if you just message the word on our Facebook page, message the word to us, chemicals, we can send you that report back via Facebook Messenger. We do have a free online class about the chemicals that are in your bathroom as well. But, when we look at all of this, we've got to clean up the chemicals. Then we've got to move on to nutrition. And, this is not new news. We've been teaching for a while about this. We did a free online class about, are you running on empty? So you might want to look at that. We also did a free online class and have a blog post on the brain boosting tips to improve memory, relieve anxiety, and age-proof your mind. There are some specific herbs that you can take, such as Bacopa, Ginkgo biloba, Gotu kola. In fact, I was listening to an imaging specialist that said looking at brain scans, and people's brains when you're on Ginkgo biloba really look pretty. They said it's the best looking brains is when you're on long-term Ginkgo biloba. And we utilize Ginkgo biloba in our antioxidant blend that we use here in the Savvy team each and every day. And so, but it's not the one thing. Ginkgo biloba is not the only thing that will then look after the brain. We've got to look at all these other issues. But if you look at all those other issues and you continue to take ginkgo, then you might have the prettiest brain scan around. That's what this particular imaging specialist found. So, check out all those sorts of things. They're all there for you. Check out our blog, savvy-team.com/HWW. But please let us know, how can we help you? We have an online survey that's a private, confidential survey that you can take to let us know your areas of focus, and then we can help you work out a plan. And you look, if you're new to what we do here in the Savvy team, request an invitation into our Healthy, Wealthy, Wise group, and let's get you on the path to optimal well-being, whatever that might mean for you. Back in the early 90s, one of our early mentors in the health and healing field said, given the right conditions, including physical, emotional, and mental preparedness, your body will always heal itself. And, really with neurodegeneration, that is absolutely no different. Let's get things moving in the right direction for you. We like to say, for your best wellness journey, you need a plan, you need some solutions, you need guidance, and you need community. And that's what we provide for you here in the Savvy team. So look, if you're ready to cut through all the confusion and basically have a guiding hand to help you along the process of achieving wellness and optimizing your brain, creating a healthier brain, then we can help. Just become part of our community today and we'll get you on the right process. Look, you can even start for free by downloading our Eat Savvy diet, following those 12 steps that are on the blog, and you're going to be optimizing things just right there. But if you want to improve something about your health and wellness, then we can certainly guide you there. Look, if you've been joining us here for the Healthy, Wealthy, Wise show, we'd love to know whether there've been any inspiration or insights that you got from that particular session. So do please let us know. And of course, if you are one of our community members, let everybody know. Share your success story with others here. Share it in the comments. If you've had some thinking improvement, some brain improvement, just improvement in your general overall well-being. So we would love to know, really how you've gone. Share with the community. We're all about, and if you're new to the community, we're all about helping you reach a high level of health and lifestyle. So that's been the healthy section of the Healthy, Wealthy, Wise show, all about helping you end Alzheimer's and improve your overall brain health. So moving on into the Wealthy and Wise segment for the Healthy, Wealthy, Wise show, we're actually going to talk about growing rich while you sleep. Does that sound like a good idea? But if you're new to what we do here, if you've just joined us for the Healthy, Wealthy, Wise show and you're new to what we do here in the Savvy team, we're all about helping you reach a higher level of health and lifestyle. And so when you do connect in with our supportive community, you'll have all the support, guidance, and action plans to really get the job done. So this is an interesting thing, growing rich while you sleep. What do we mean by this? What on earth do I mean by grow rich while you sleep? Well, you know, you've heard of Think and Grow Rich. You may have even heard of Talk and Grow Rich by Ben Holland. But have you heard of Sleep and Grow Rich? Well, I affectionately call it Sleep and Grow Rich. But we're talking about the book Grow Rich While You Sleep by Ben Sweetland. And I'm not going to delve into this a lot. I just wanted to mention a few things from it on this particular show because we were so delving into the depth of Alzheimer's disease because it was World Alzheimer's Day today. So I just wanted to briefly mention what we can do to grow rich in all areas of your life while you sleep. Now, unfortunately, this book by Ben Sweetland is no longer in print. You can get a Kindle version, I believe, or if you can pick it up in any secondhand bookstore, then I would encourage you to do that. But as a reward for being on this show, listening, watching, or whatever, I happen to find a PDF version. So if you want that, message us, ask for it, and we'll get that back to you. Okay? So just happened to find it the other day. Random, so happy to share that with you. But this book is an absolute classic, and the title sort of suggests that it's about riches and everything. But the interesting thing is that Sweetland was a syndicated columnist, newspaper columnist, and he actually got fairly widely known. He was a psychologist that got fairly widely known for marriage guidance and how to heal your marriage while you sleep, really. So, this particular book was focused on riches, but he's just talking about you can change anything in your life by giving your subconscious mind instructions before you go to sleep. So in the beginning of the book, he explains how to utilize the subconscious before you go to sleep. And even if you only read those things, it's probably worth it. But he also details various affirmations for going to sleep, programming the subconscious, and he explains what to do. So it's a really good book about understanding the mind and improving the mind and giving your mind instructions, or sort of pre-paving, sort of saying, putting out that things are going to be good, that you're going to get a good night's sleep, that you're going to wake up feeling refreshed, those sorts of things. Because otherwise we tend to operate on the programmed stuff. Oh my God, oh my God, it's going to be a terrible day tomorrow, and all this sort of thing. So, again, the more we can set ourselves up for success with our thinking, the better. So he asserts that 95% of the problems that we experience stem from a negative mindset. We just have negative thinking. We sort of pre-program things. We pre-pave. We predestine things by a negative way of thinking. And he said, doesn't matter whether you're timid, whether you have domestic problems, whether you have business failure, whether you have bad memory, you're too tense and stressed and worried. It's all because of your negative thinking. So tough one, Ben, and he says you can do something about it while you sleep. So I wanted to share with you some of the things, just briefly some of the things there. And as I said, you can message us and we can send you the PDF copy that we found. But this is in sort of in alignment with one of the the things that we've talked about on the show before about the subconscious and the conscious mind. And this image goes a little bit more in depth about some of the aspects of the conscious mind and subconscious. And this image disagrees a little bit with some of the stuff that Sweetland talks about and some of the more recent stuff that memory blank, not a sign of Alzheimer's, Bruce Lipton. So Bruce Lipton. World Alzheimer's Day. Bruce Lipton, he has a bit of a different idea on the conscious and the subconscious, even than Ben Sweetland does, or this particular thing puts forward. But nevertheless, there's a lot going on beyond our conscious mind. So our subconscious mind is basically our program mind. It runs the tapes. It runs our programs. And if you've never done anything to reprogram things, it's running your old programs that you got when you were a kid. So, is it time to do some reprogramming? Is it time to download the latest software update? Or are you happy to run on version 1.0 or whatever? It's about time you downloaded the update. And the way you do that is by deciding consciously what you want to change and reprogramming your mind. And that's really what Sweetland is talking about. And so he, one of the things that he talks about is just simply giving your mind instructions as you go to bed. So for example, he says, tonight while I'm asleep, my creative mind will work on this problem. So he says, identify the problem, like, what can I do to fix this or whatever? I'm looking for guidance on that. He says, tonight while I'm asleep, my creative mind will work on the problem and give me a decision when I awaken in the morning. So he says that's just one great way to do that. And he says as an example here, suppose you need a large sum of money for a project or something, to meet an obligation or to achieve a goal or a dream. He says, you could hold the thought of this. He said, I will be guided in thought and action toward the solution of my problem. It will be easy and fun to get the amount of money required. So what he's asserting that a lot of the times what we do is we focus on the negative thing and we hold the negative thing in our mind, when all we have to do is what we teach in the Savvy Tomb is do an about face. Well, that's what I don't want. Oh my God, things are not going very well. So that's what I don't want. What is it that I do want? Just do a 180. Change your focus. So he said, for example, you can repeat a statement, repeat a statement before going to bed that tonight I'm about to drift off into a restful sleep, and when I awake, I'll be directed with the exact action steps and thoughts that I need to accomplish my desire. So it's sort of pre-paving, saying, because what we do, oh my God, I better get to sleep because it's going to be a crappy day tomorrow. They're the instructions that we give. Whereas if we can take conscious control and say, I'm going to have a good night's sleep tonight. I'm going to wake up feeling rested. And when I wake up in the morning, I'm going to wake up on the right side of the bed. I'm going to know exactly what I need to do to accomplish this. It's going to be wake up in the morning. And instead of picking up the negativity, you then say, today is going to be a great day. This is going to be a good day. It's going to be easy. It's going to be fun. Things are going to flow. And you actually develop the expectancy by basically setting your intention ahead of time. So one of the things that Sweetland says, he says that know that your creative mind is occupied every hour of the day and working for you or against you. So that's your choice. He says that it's working for you if you become positive and create constructive thoughts. He says you need to be specific in the instructions that you give your mind. He talks about, tend to really work to free your mind from worry, fear, and doubt, and those sorts of things. So he asserts a magic formula here. Before retiring, before you go to bed, relax mentally and physically. Number 2, think of the problem or your goal, what you're really looking to achieve. Okay? Think about it, but don't fear it. Don't worry about it. This is where you then start to hand it over to the subconscious. He says, develop a success attitude. So really consciously think about it from a positive point of view, developing that success attitude. And after you've done through this, remove all thoughts of the problem from your conscious mind, knowing that the solution will be forthcoming at the right time. And you're basically handing it over. And then asking for your subconscious mind to deliver you the problem. So again, think about it. Next time you're going forward, understand, use the power of your mind and consciously use the conscious mind to direct things as you're moving forward, and really think about, the rest of the day. Today is going to be a great day. Things are going to flow well for me. Things are going to be easy. Things are going to be fun. I'm going to have a good time. It's all working out. The more you can prepave things, the better you're going to be. So that's it for the Wealthy and Wise segment for our Healthy, Wealthy, Wise show. Just remember, if you are looking for an action plan, looking for a way to reach a high level of health and lifestyle, then we can help. We can help you come up with a plan, point you towards specific solutions, guide you along the path, and even tap you in with our supportive community. So do let us know how we can help you. We're here in the Healthy, Wealthy, Wise show, and to finish things off, it's really important that you consider what would make the biggest difference for your life in your life right now. Having more health and vitality than you have right now, or having more money and lifestyle, which would make the biggest difference. Because if it's health and vitality, then let's come up with the plan. Let's work on that. And if it's money and lifestyle, then using some of these tactics such as Sleep and Grow Rich can really help. But if you're looking for guidance in that area, then we encourage you to work with us. We do help people capitalize on the booming wellness industry and create a second stream of income working from home through our Savvy Home Business division. So if you would like to generate an extra stream of income, sharing some of the action plans and programs that we have, then definitely let's talk. We can help you. So that is it for the Healthy, Wealthy, Wise show for this particular session. Congratulations for being here. We really do commend you for being somebody that's willing to educate yourself, willing to learn and grow, and certainly willing to be someone that's with us here. And look, pay it forward. Pay this information forward. There's someone out there in your community that needs to know this information. So that's it from me for this Healthy, Wealthy, Wise show. Until next time, it's Corey Sievers here, encouraging you to be savvy. All the best. We'll catch you next time round.